Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and we have another example of how the political left is unraveling all over the world. Wait until you see this, so make sure to share this video with friends and family, and let's dive right in. Over the weekend, video emerged showing a number of Muslim students effectively shouting down and shutting down an LGBT pride event in the nation of Belgium. The event took place at the Atlas College in the Belgian city of Genk, where an event commemorating the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia was suddenly interrupted by over 100 young Muslim students who swarmed vendor tables, hurled bottles, and spit on a number of rainbow flags and displays, all while chanting Allah Akbar. Now, as you could see from the video footage, teachers and staff were powerless to stop the students from disrupting the LGBT event. It was reported that as soon as class bells rang, most of the students ended up returning to class, and the situation did, in fact, quickly de-escalate, but not before a very clear message was sent. LGBT activism is not in the least compatible with Islam, as far as these Muslim students were concerned. You could have one, you can have the other, but you're not going to have both. Now, if you don't know, Belgium as a nation has changed dramatically over the last decade. Officials there, for whatever reason, have been on the forefront of the European left's open borders policies. Not only is a third of Belgium foreign-born, but in Brussels, Belgians are actually the minority by far. 80% of the population there is foreign-born. And in the midst of this surge in migration over the last decade, the number one foreign group to relocate to Belgium have been Moroccans, who are overwhelmingly Muslim, 99%. In fact, one report claimed that the most popular baby name in Brussels right now is Mohammed. According to the Rare Foundation, the most popular names for male babies in over a dozen municipalities throughout Brussels are all Islamic. But now we're beginning to see what happens when the open borders policies of left-wing politicians coincides with their equal commitment to liberal lifestyle values and LGBT activism. You may remember we saw something very similar some months back in an explosive local school board meeting in the city of Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn happens to be one of the most densely Muslim populated areas in the United States, and this is a scene of what happened when these parents got word that books involving explicit LGBT content were being given to their kids. This was the result. Now, keep in mind, this is happening in one of the bluest of blue districts in the nation. Dearborn votes 70% Democrat. And this district that votes 70% Democrat is rising up and pushing back against one of the major constituencies of the Democratic Party, which, of course, in this case happens to be the LGBT community. So what's happening here? Well, what's going on is we're seeing nothing less than the unraveling of the political left. And it's unraveling precisely because of the inherent contradictions innate to left-wing liberalism. And I'm going to show you exactly how. But first, gang, you know that corrupt politicians like Nancy Pelosi and establishment senators have been using their security clearances and exclusive knowledge to their advantage in the market for decades now. They know when sales are up. They know when earnings are going to be. They know what legislation's coming out. They know the incoming Fed changes and a host of other inside baseball tips that gives them an unfair advantage when picking stocks. When these bigwigs make moves, odds are they know something. And thanks to a little-known SEC database, guess what? We can see what these people are buying, when and where. And not only do we see it in real time, but we get to piggyback on their trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves perfectly legally and ethically. My friend Ross Givens has been tracking insider trading for years, and his recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some have hit as high as nearly 1,500%. And according to him, there's simply no better way to beat the market. And now it's your turn. Click on that link below right now and learn how you too can learn to trade like Pelosi. Click on that link and learn how to gain an insider advantage for yourself today. To understand why the modern left is unraveling, we have to understand cultural Marxism and its radical internal flaws. Cultural Marxism deliberately attempts to bifurcate Western society into two groups of people, a victimizer group and a victim group, an oppressor group and an oppressed group. The oppressor group is assumed to be monolithic, so in our case, that oppressor group is white male Christians. The oppressed group is a coalition of minorities who together ultimately create a majority of minorities, as it were, whose ultimate goal is to overthrow the majority in terms of who has ultimate political power. So, in the short term, this is why left-wing liberals try to embrace both LGBT rights on the one hand and special treatment and favored status for Muslims on the other. In the ideology of cultural Marxism, both the LGBT community and the Muslim community are the recipients historically of repression and discrimination in the West. So the cultural Marxist ends up embracing two fundamentally different communities built on fundamentally different moral systems and commitments. One is characterized by traditional religiosity, while the other is characterized by secular lifestyles. But they're both united by virtue of their shared identity as supposedly oppressed victims. So here's the key. What happens when both groups start to achieve numerical and political power? What happens? What happens is when liberalism is successful, both the minority oppressed groups end up achieving some pretty impressive political power. But then what happens? What happens is they stop being oppressed. They stop seeing themselves as oppressed. And the moment they stop seeing themselves as oppressed, they lose their common identity. And once they lose their common identity, their natural animosity towards one another takes over. And that's exactly what we saw in Belgium and in Dearborn and a host of other areas around the world. In other words, the more successful liberalism is in achieving its goals, the more rapidly it unravels and implodes in on itself. Make no mistake, it may seem like liberalism is winning all over the world, but given its inherent futilities, all that means is liberalism loses all the sooner.